Dia Gwit, everyone, Kajima Toshi, and welcome back to episode number 61 of the Inline G Flute podcast with me, your host, motherfucking Inline G. Welcome back to the third installment of my NFA Bootleg Series, coming to you from a sunny hotel room in even sunnier San Antonio, Texas. Now, this week's guest is another one I have been chasing for ages. I've been playing a cat and mouse game with him, but finally I snagged him when we were on the same continent. It is none other than Iranian flutist, recording artist, orchestral musician, and to be honest, personal friend, Mehrdad Gholami. Now, Mehrdad has just got a brand new album out called This Vast Sky, which is available everywhere. Go stream it. I actually recommend as well his 2021 album, which is called Pieces for the Flute, which features some incredible music by Iranian composers, and it's so interesting to go and listen to that style. Go and check it out. I love this episode, lads. It's one of those episodes where you forget you're recording. You just chat shite with a mate, and you're like, oh, there's a camera there. We could have done this for 5 hours, so maybe one day there'll be a sequel to this episode. So, lads, go ahead and skip. If you're a regular listener, go ahead and skip 1 or 2 minutes, because you know what's coming. But for everybody else, the Inline G podcast is free and always will be free. However, if you want to donate to the podcast, you can now do so through the Patreon. On the screen now is the address, and for the audio listeners, it is patreon.com/the Inline G Flute podcast. It costs €5 a month, and with that, you are keeping this podcast alive. You get 4 episodes a month of this podcast, come rain nor shine. I will always get an episode out on a Friday. If you listen to all 4 and you think, fuck, I would love to buy Gareth a pint to say thank you for all his work, you can now do so. And you're also supporting me for my work as an independent artist. This is the definition of an independent podcast, so you're paying me for my work, which feels incredible. It also means I can turn away sponsors, because we have so many patrons now that I am on the verge of not having to ask sponsors anymore for money, which is amazing, because that every time I ask a sponsor, they're like, you can't say this, you can't talk about that, you can't swear. So I have to say no to them. But now this podcast is becoming self-funded, which is incredible. Not many podcasts do that, especially small independent ones in the flute world. So thank you to anyone who subscribed there. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I cannot tell you what it means to me as an artist. But listen, if you can afford, go subscribe over there. You can unsubscribe at any time. There's no weird payments. If you hit unsubscribe, you're instantly unsubscribed. Nothing happens. Great. And you can jump in and out. That's what I do. If you can't afford it, there's a cost of living crisis right now. Times are tough. Don't worry. 1, you can keep listening for free, and 2, you will not miss anything. If you pay for the Patreon, you will not get extra episodes. It is a system based on kindness and soundness. If you can afford it, you're paying for someone who can't afford it to listen for free. And just quickly, guys, don't forget, if you're buying anything from Flute Center, stick in the code INLINEG at your purchase. Check out my bio for what goodies and discounts you get, but just stick it in, see what happens, okay? So here is this week's Inline G Flute podcast with my friend and yours, Mehrdad Gholami. Sure. The one thing I'm going to ask you though before we do properly kick off is, can you pronounce your name for me?
It's Mehrdad Gholami.
Gholami, it's not Gholami.
It's not Gholami. It's technically Gho, but don't worry about that. Gholami is easiest.
How would you pronounce it in Farsi?
Gholami.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't have to adapt it in the US then?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad.
I mean, a lot of people pick American name. I just felt weird if I was like, hi, my name is Alex.
That's like, the other one that I have to do, actually. I have to say this.
It's me. It's personally me, but
I love it.
If they go through learning the name itself, that's enough. Like, just be able to say Mehrdad Gholami. That's amazing work from you. Yeah. I'm just happy with that. I'm not going to add a freaking vowel to, I shouldn't probably say that.
Okay.
To vowel to your...
Well, I'm glad I got it right then, because I have screwed up a lot of names in this podcast. And I also should say, I know it's a terrible thing to say to guests, but I have, like, the air conditioning here in the US has killed my throat. It's so dry. So when I laugh too much, I start to like, which has happened on every podcast I've recorded here at some point. But luckily... All right. Container filled with Dr. Pepper.
That's
give me
great hydration.
Yeah, I'm very. Everyone thinks I'm so healthy. I was like, oh my god, he drinks so much water. I'm like, nope.
If you can't find,
Dr.
you
Pepper.
cannot fix if you can switch to Southern accent. That's going to be great.
I would love to try to do it, but then I don't know. Is that a hate crime if I do that? So I'm not. I'm not gonna.
I don't think so.
I don't know. But anyway, I'm not expert by any means on Iran or Iranian culture, but from what I do know, it is a hugely rich culture. You guys have such a big culture in Iran.
It's There are some people that call it's a tired civilization.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, honestly. Wow, this is now a history podcast.
Yeah, I love this.
Let's talk about it.
Man, I fall into the Iranian thing. Like, we'll talk about this later as well, but we have a mutual friend, Nastaran.
Yeah.
And the amount of times, I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, but the amount of times I've sat in Nastaran's flat drinking wine and smoking cigarettes and talking about Iranian history.
Oh my gosh.
It's great. She would be a great podcast guest.
Yeah.
But she's educated me on this a little bit, so I want to hear your side of it. I find it fascinating.
Yeah, we are pretty much on the same page with Nastaran because we talk a lot, and
yeah.
she's one of my good friends. But again, it's an old, like in a young versus old type of a thing, civilization. So there's a lot of baggage about everything.
Yeah,
and everything you say, you should say, oh, but 400 years ago, but 2,000 years ago this happened. So it's just
okay.
It can get tiring, but you grow up there, you live there. It's your home, and I was there until I was 23. So I went to school there. I did my undergrad there, and all my family is still there.
Yeah,
so,
of course. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big part. I mean, that is who I am. It's not a big part of it. I think I've Americanized fairly well over the past 10 years.
Well, what does fairly well mean? Like, how much do you want to Americanize?
Understand America, I think.
Yeah.
So. It means to not go like, oh my gosh, how is that possible on everything? Like,
which is tempting to do.
Yes. So it's like, oh, I get it. That's the reason that thing is the way it is in this system. So
to be fair, well, we can talk about this as both foreigners. Like, I don't live here, obviously, but I've spent a few weeks here, and being here has changed my perception of the country entirely from what I see in the media. I think one of the big things I realize, even when you're at NFA, you talk to different professors, and like, oh, I'm a professor here and I'm a professor there. And you realize the size of the country is a lot more than what I thought it was.
That's really important. Like the distance that I came, sometimes I'm on the phone with my mom and I'm like, I'm going to a conference. And she's like, how many hours of driving? I was like, it's like 6 hours of flying. It's like going from Tehran to Paris.
Yeah.
And the distance that I've come, in Europe, it would be coming from Iran to, I don't know, Italy.
That's
the distance I traveled for this conference.
And then you think when you travel from when you travel from Iran to Italy, for example, you're going across I don't know how many countries, languages, cultures, their own governments, presidents.
Yeah.
And this is all the same thing here.
It's really big.
I think that plays a huge part. It's made me understand American culture a little bit more just when I realized the difference between a major American city like LA, for example, or a small American town in the deep south is they're different countries.
Very different. And I lived in the South for 10 years and I do love it. And the thing is that with the other two big countries, this is so funny. This is a flute podcast.
I know. We'll get to flute in a minute. We'll tie it away.
with Russia and China, they are really homogenous. I mean, not so much Russia, but they are big. But the identity is fairly homogenous. In America, it's very diverse. It's very diverse, and I call it America's a social study.
Yeah.
It's just we don't know how this is working.
I totally agree.
Yeah, it
is
crazy.
A fascinating place. So, but you're teaching now. Where are you teaching in America?
I'm teaching in Western Washington University. It's in this city called Bellingham.
Okay.
It's pretty much exactly halfway between Seattle and Vancouver.
Yes, so it's
on the
way
water.
Up in the
it's
never each northwest.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Farther, we do have a couple of smaller towns before us and entering Canada, but we are pretty much right on the border.
Yeah.
25 minutes.
And what's the name of the university again? Sorry.
Western Washington.
Washington. Have you got into the whole American culture with university? Do you have a football team? Do you have all that stuff?
Well.
I love asking about this stuff.
I lived in Texas, and everything was about football. And to be honest, to be fair, it really brings in a lot of money for the music because of the marching band.
Yes, see, Stephen Clark was telling me this. It blew my mind.
Yeah, like you find hundreds. I've taught master classes in Texas that there are 75 high schooler flute players from the same school, and the reasoning is that they do have that football game that brings in a lot of is what I was telling about Americanizing. To not going like, oh my gosh, it's crazy.
You need to understanding
how it works. And Western doesn't have a football team. We do have a volleyball team and a basketball team, but that was one of the shocks, and we don't have a marching band.
Wow.
It was personally, I really like it.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting the difference, but we do have very good wind bands still.
Okay.
Although that's a very football-y tradition, but we still do have some really good wind bands.
And your volleyball team, do they have like a name? Do they have like, the Bears or the Tigers or something
Vikings,
like that?
I think.
The Vikings,
yes,
okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
I've been there
Vikings
for only
then,
a year, but I think it's because the university's mascot is Vikings, and we are on the water.
Okay.
We are on the water. It's called well, it's connected to Pacific Ocean.
Yeah,
Basically,
okay.
we're on that coast.
I love this stuff, man. I was talking to... I'm going to interview a few more people who are professors here, and I love getting like the team names of everything. Stephen, where he's teaching, they were called the Demons. He's like, go Demons, and I love that, man. It's so American. That's proper. Have you picked a team yet to support? Have you got an NFL team you supporting?
Not an NFL team. I'm just not, and you're wearing a German jersey, and you're going to probably get upset with me. I'm not super big into sports.
Yeah, I get. Yeah,
but I do watch European League.
Okay.
Yeah, because you do. I do watch some volleyball here and
there.
The Nations League, but with America, I went to TCU, which they have a huge football team, and their mascot is horned frogs, which is insane. This crazy, and it's super cool. It's this lizard that shoot, and I'm not making this up.
It sounds like you're making it up already, but
it shoots blood out of its eyes.
No, it doesn't. What, like an X-Man?
I did not believe this. I think it was my first.
What, like, is it a defense mechanism? Or?
Yeah. It's horrifying. Even
that is horrifying.
Video, it's really scary.
A frog that shoots blood out of its eyes.
I legitimately thought my roommate is kind of trying to trick me into something.
Yeah,
that's my first month here. And it was like, the horned frog is this lizard that shoots blood out of its eyes. It's like, no.
But you're talking about culture shocks when you come to America. These are the things you're like, what is going on? But yeah, so when you came to America for the first time, you came, I say America, I meant to say USA. I'm sorry, I keep making that mistake. When you came to the US for the first time.
Is that not proper?
Well, America is the continent, I've been told. So it includes Canada and, as I've only found out recently, Mexico's apparently North America, which I still don't believe. I know geographically Mexico's North America, but I don't know.
Okay, USA.
I think it's Central America, but anyway. Yeah. Sorry if I have the Mexican listenership.
It takes a while to say USA. I feel like a little bit of national anthem in the back.
Yeah.
USA. Okay.
Yeah. But coming to the US and then going to Texas, that's like super US. That's like US plus.
Same thing happened to me.
So how did you find going to Texas from Iran culturally?
Well, a lot of similarities, some changes. The universities are more robust, and of course the degree of freedom is so much better. But the thing is, the southern culture of America is very similar to Iranian culture.
Really?
As far as there's a phrase for the southern hospitality, and I kind of was. I don't know who or how, but I was warned that south of US is not as welcoming. Yeah, it was not the case. I lived here 10 years, never had any issues with anything. Yeah, and I've taught out in the country. It wasn't like I was in downtown Dallas and I didn't see anything. I would drive like 45 minutes into some county that's nobody is there and would teach a flute master class. And honestly,
the hospitality is
10 years in Texas, my memoir.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a great name for a book. Yeah, to be fair, I found, we've traveled a lot over the US and Texas. I have loved it for so many reasons. Yeah. The hospitality is great.
The food is amazing.
The food, man. Yep. The food, oh my God. Yeah. The beer's actually not bad as well. There's a lot of good things going on in Texas.
That's a big compliment coming from you.
And from an Irish person, that is a big, But I had a beer called Lone Star the other day. I was like, I felt like a cowboy drinking it. And it was great. All I want to do is feel like a cowboy. But
Lone Star.
I'm also curious about you playing the flute in Iran, learning the flute in Iran. Was there any big differences when you came over to the US in terms of the style of flute playing?
Yeah, well, the thing is, my direct teacher back in Iran had studied in US during 1980s.
Okay.
And she was the big motivator and kind of the mentor for me to come to America, because she always told me that make sure you go to America, and the academia there is fantastic, it's the best in the world. And
that is true.
She really liked the academic culture of here and the way that the American universities work, and I ended up also loving it. And that was the main motivator. The other one for me is that I didn't have any money.
Okay.
So
it's always a good motivator, to be fair.
Yes, I think it's a big motivator.
Yes, it is.
So I had to find somewhere that I liked to go, and also I didn't have to pay the huge tickets for going
Yeah.
to an American university. So those two ended up bringing me to Texas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I ended up staying for my doctorate, which I think means that I really liked it.
Yeah.
But that was the big thing for me. That's I do. Plus, it's America. It's you do want to at some point go there.
True. Yeah, I think we all have to. Yeah, it's culturally it's so significant, but I'm curious about the style of flute playing as well. Yeah, I know. People are going to be at me at this, but I don't care. If you want,
just beep them out.
Yeah, if you want factual correctness, you've got the wrong podcast. Okay, that's not the podcast that gets things right. This is a podcast that's very loose. Okay, you take the law liberally here. But today's episode, the day I'm recording this, is about the American Flute School. So I've been reading all about the American Flute School and the style of playing and stuff.
Very cool.
I still find it. I haven't quite grasped it yet. I'm not sure. I think the phrase I used was, I'm not sure if there's an American flute school or style of playing, or if it's a French school with an American accent. I'm not really sure. Have you noticed an American style of playing?
Flute is a French thing with that blank accent. But
do you notice the style of playing?
I have a word for you. Vibrato.
In what sense?
In very fast sense, vibrato.
In America?
In America. Well, here's the thing, though. I do see some change, some differences. Okay. For example, for years, it took me... It's like the other subject we were talking about earlier, that it took me years to get how to do this thing, that now I can do whatever I want. I'm kind of trying to get rid of it. And for example, American Flute School, I feel like it's very orchestra-driven.
Okay.
So it's very blendy. I don't know how that makes it. So... I hate to say it like this because it's not like that. People don't take as many risks. Yeah. But even with note lengths, it's longer. Everything is longer. Everything is very orchestra. I need to be blending with the universe constantly. Yeah. So I would say that's one of them. Like if you listen to American players 80s and 90s, the note lengths are much longer than let's say the way Rampal plays, like very articulated.
That's a very interesting aspect. I never really thought of that. The vibrato I've definitely thought about.
That was mostly a Julius Baker joke.
Yeah.
His recordings with Bernstein is just like...
But then Baker does that. Joseph Mariano did it as well. Kincaid did it. And I think a lot of American flute players now, you can tell they're American by the vibrato, I often think.
The other thing that's... Now, I just thought about this, honestly, is that we have more recordings of American orchestras readily available, and vibrato is a recording thing too. They did the reason that it became so prominent is that you could differentiate it in early recordings. So vibrato became a big part of. I have a lot of historical playing friend geeks that are anti-vibrato.
I love this.
They go on rallies, no to vibrato. Yeah, and I've learned this from them. That vibrato is very kind of goes hand in hand with recording.
Okay.
So one of the reasons that maybe those early Baker recordings are so just like constant vibrato might be the fact that they had to project into these microphones in the 50s, 60s, 70s. I don't know. And that might be a reason, but that's actually one of the factors that I think
that's really interesting
because
even the other flute players, even the great French players of that time, you hear like old records like Marcel Moyes and stuff, they have a similar vibrato. It's always constant and really...
Yeah, it's maybe a recording thing.
It could be, yeah.
It's a recording thing.
That's super interesting. Yeah, the American style of playing in general, I was talking to Stephen about this as well. I think Americans generally, they really value precision.
Yeah.
Playing in time, playing in tune, playing it right. And sometimes I think
orchestra.
It lacks... Yeah, I think that, so this whole idea of blending and getting it all right. And I think sometimes it just lacks... Now, I'm generalizing, obviously, and it's hard to generalize it completely in the size of the US, but the school seems to be a little bit lacking in what, in Europe, we would value, I think, a little bit more highly, the individual, soloistic, almost virtuosic, showing off nature.
Yeah.
Wearing your heart in your sleeve and playing with a little bit more, than maybe. Do you find that over here?
I've seen it. But I also exactly know what you're talking about.
Okay.
It's the risk thing that I said earlier. It's just to be able to do that, you need to take a lot of risks.
Yeah.
You might, God forbid, crack a few notes. Or you might not land on that low note perfectly with the richest, craziest sound. But it does give a lot of soul to the recording. And the other thing that I'm just kind of like, it's interesting you brought this up. I'm thinking about it right now. That might be because, I mean, you do a lot of recitals in Texas.
Yeah.
In America, again, it's orchestra versus solo thing. That's being a recitalist. In Europe, I said Texas. Being a recitalist is a thing in Europe. And here, it's a little different. It's a little different. You don't find a lot of people going around and playing a lot of like hour and a half good old 1950s recital.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Changed a little bit.
Yeah, and that might affect the style of playing, I suppose, a little bit as well.
You get a lot of convention type events that you go
that's
play.
That's different, yeah.
Which you want to be safe. You just have 10 minutes to represent yourself. And it's hard to... I'm honestly brainstorming. I don't know.
Yeah, me too. I'm thinking of it just on the road.
Yeah.
But that's the thing as well about the convention that I'm a little bit disappointed in. There's so much flute playing going on. There's so many great programs, so much interesting music. But one thing I'm missing is just like one of the top players, one of the real creme de la creme, like taking someone like, I don't know, Lorna McGee, who's here, and instead of giving her an obscure piece, I just want to hear Lorna McGee play the Prokofiev Sonata.
Yeah.
I want the hits. I want the classics. One concert of just give me what I want.
Yeah. As your sound engineer, now I'm checking that. Okay.
Actually, just for you, I'm going to make sure
that's going well. I like those.
I always double check.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Good. Yeah, that... I don't know. I
just one concert. Like I love all the other stuff, but one time I just want the greatest.
It's very scattered into different chunks of things, and that might plus we don't get to go to the top recitals as often in America.
Yeah.
Because it's again so big that you can't take a train and
That's
go
exactly
see
it. Yeah.
Julian Budiman playing it to recitals on the other side of the continent.
Yeah.
So that's
the style of teaching then as well. Like, I'm just curious, what kind of teaching you bring to America? Do you have to sort of fit into the American system? Are they quite strict about what teachers have to teach the students? What you have to make sure they learn in terms of rep, or do you get freedom to sort of do what you want with your students?
You do have a degree of freedom. I feel like. There are some standard things that I personally believe that like an undergrad.
Okay, so what do you think then? If you've got an undergrad student coming to you, what's your priorities?
The big thing about America is the music in public schools.
Okay.
And how robust that is, and that makes a lot of education majors to come in.
Okay.
And for an education flute player,
yeah,
you are not necessarily just going to make them only the best flute player they can be. You are also going to teach them how to teach later. Yeah. Which completely changes the whole thing.
That's interesting.
Plus their degree is so complex and hefty that they don't have time to practice that much. They get like an hour or two every day, then they have to take a million other education classes.
Yeah.
That's the thing that people might not realize when they see like these big studios of 20 people in the studio. There was this comment online a few months ago that someone was like, are those going to be playing? There are not enough jobs for them, which there actually is enough jobs for all of those people. Like you see Texas universities, its size of the studio is like 25. I thought that's
crazy. Yeah.
NM Commerce we had like 25 at some point,
but
the job placement for them is 100%.
Wow.
Yes, they are going to get job in public school, either elementary, middle school, or high school.
That's insane.
Yeah, and even at Western, our job placement is 100%. Like
Whoa.
you really have to work so hard to not get a high school job afterwards because
that's incredible.
The public school supports it so much.
Okay.
So because of that, the trajectory of the education majors is different than the ones that are doing performance.
Okay.
But I feel like there is a good consensus of what you should be teaching.
Okay.
As far as that.
Such as, what do you think?
In what sense? Like
as a flute player. So if you had a performance major, for example.
Well, if I have a performance major, I would every quarter or every semester, every term, let's call it.
Yeah.
They need to learn pretty much a whole book of scales.
Yeah.
Stefan Gober, Reichert,
the whole book.
The Bible of the flutes, all like the Moïse, and in addition to that, I usually make them bring in a couple of etudes. Okay. I know studios around the country that the students need to bring 4 etudes a week. Yes, I've heard that. Yes, these are some of the schools that produce a lot of orchestral
Even
trails.
In Paris, I was only asked to do 2. Yeah. I had 2 a week.
So my students usually bring 1.5.
Okay. Yeah.
That's usually every other week. Maybe they have 2.
Which etudes do you recommend?
And then
Which etudes do you recommend? Or you let them pick their own?
I really like Kohler romantic etudes.
Oh yes.
It's just perfect to teach everything.
There's so much fun to play as well.
It's really nice, and every one of them, I've taught so much. Every one of them, number one, you teach like the direction of air or the connecting two notes, and once they learn that, number two, number three, articulation, all of these, and that one is really good. I am not huge on Anderson.
For what reason? Musically, or just you're
I don't know.
Sick of them?
There are too many of them out there.
There's a lot, yeah.
I like Berbegir, maybe from my teacher back in Iran.
I really popped up a little bit again.
It's chummy.
Yeah.
It's like it feels good playing as.
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
I like the Lorenzo ones. I used to get my students to play the
those
Lorenzo
are hard.
Yeah, but
those are hard.
They're proper virtuoso ones.
Carl
I enjoy them.
Gellert is really good to teach 30 caprices.
Yeah, Carl Gellert divides opinion with a lot of people because his music is heavy romantic and it can sometimes be a bit much for some people.
The caprices are good. The reasoning that I'm saying this is that I get to teach the students how to connect with the composer's thinking.
Okay.
Right. So how should they think that what did the composer want to do? So with Carl Gellert, that's perfect because it's complex.
It's very clear as well.
But not really.
Yeah.
It's like two notes and he's doing all these compositional techniques, and you're telling him, oh, this is an octave displacement.
Yeah.
Imagine like if you see it in a different piece, make sure that you're doing that. Yeah. That's why I like Carl Gellert.
Yeah, because he does tell you exactly what he wants. Yeah. Yeah, it's very
Anderson, clear. Opus 15, Opus 32, Opus 62 or 64. Those are some of my other favorite ones.
It's really interesting about the composer as well, because I feel like that's something that got drilled into me in Paris was what your role as a flute player is, because you're not really the star. You're the connecting point. There's the composer and there's the audience. Yeah. And we sit in the middle. Our job is to get that music to those people's ears. Mm-hmm. We're just a bit in the middle. We have to make sure ego doesn't really get in the way of that too much. Yeah. We're not the stars, in my opinion, and that's the way I teach as well. We're not the stars.
Yeah, there are two camps. Some people think it's the whole conversation about is performing an art, or you're just producing something that somebody else.
Something I think about a lot.
It's hard. Yeah. It's hard. And I don't have a clear answer for that. I think it is, because you truly, it's an art in the sense of acting is an art. You become somebody else. Yeah. All right. And it's really good to be able to become so many other people. Yeah. Right. So you're acting.
Yeah.
Based on a play.
Yeah.
Right? So it can be an art if you can truly become the composer.
Yeah.
Right?
But then also, I suppose the artistic interpretation lies in what we think the composer is. Yeah. Your idea of Mozart could be totally different to my idea of Mozart. Yeah. And that's an art in itself then.
Yeah, that might be why I like playing like living composers or different composers constantly. Yeah. I don't play the same thing pretty much ever in different This past year I did, and I think that's with my new job I'm going to have to play a lot of the same things back.
But the same things as in the
same repertoire.
But the modern repertoire or the classics?
No, the same pieces that I'm learning at the moment. It can be
You'll do them a few times.
Yeah, so I can actually have, because I don't have enough time to practice constant new repertoire now. But maybe, and I have to play a lot of concerts, so every month until the end of the year and beginning of next year, I have to play 2 concerts at least a month. Wow. So I probably will pick the same repertoire and kind of recycle in some older.
Well, this is something that I was always amazed with by you as well, because I think the first time we spoke was during lockdown, actually, because I was meant to play one of Nastaran's pieces in Paris, and then lockdown happened, and I think you premiered it, showed it for you, didn't you, from the clouds? Yeah. So I contacted you to talk about it, and then I started following you on social media, and that time you were doing a lot of recording on your own. You were getting all the new toys and getting how to record high quality from home. Yeah. And then your first record came out. I don't know if it was your first record, the first record since I've known you, with all these Iranian composers. And I thought, my immediate reaction was, how do you go about learning all this new music all the time?
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a lot of notes in some of this stuff.
Well, you need the pandemic for it.
Yeah, that helps, yeah.
That one came out of kind of nowhere. And some personal things happened that year and the year before that I felt the need to play 8 pieces in that album. 8 tracks. I think it's 7 pieces. 7 pieces from Iranian composers that were their top notch of that genre, of that Iranian composition genre. Okay. Right? So you have pieces like the first 2. This is on spot. This album is, by the way, for the listeners, it's called Pieces for Flute.
Yes.
It's easy.
And you'll find it if you just search.
So the first two tracks are very just good old craft of composition.
Yeah.
It's just you have all these basic skills, and it's really beautiful. It's very Iranian, and those two are great. And then you have some avant-garde stuff. You have some new complexity stuff that you look at the score, you're like, oh gosh, this is not even possible. And the eighth track of the album, where I do a scream in the middle of this piece, that one is truly impossible. It's all in fourth octave. You have a lot of high D, and it was kind of rite of passage for me, because I wanted to graduate from playing Iranian pieces for solo flute and move on.
Okay, so you want to get the biggest one there. My very
recent album is for two flutes now.
Yes.
So I'm like all these projects that I'm telling you, I'm working on a flute quartet album or flute and piano.
Yeah.
My first solo album is actually back from 2011. That's also on Spotify. That one has flute guitar, flute piano, and solo pieces on it.
Okay, Iranian music as well?
Yes, it's called Iran Flute Society, which was I won the competition for the Iran Flute Society, and this was it's like the European competitions. They helped me record the full album of Iranian music.
Now, something interesting you just said there is about one of the tracks said it's very Iranian in its style. What does that mean for a listener who?
Tell me about it. I wrote a dissertation. I still don't know
Yeah.
that.
For example, one thing I know very briefly about. Maybe you can help me know a bit more about this. There's a Persian scale as well in music.
There are Persian scales, and with a lot of Eastern versus European music. Kind of the idea of 12 notes breaks down, and you have some notes in between these black and white keys of the piano. So the Iranian music, or dastgah music, how we call it, has its own scales and its own kind of modes, roughly modes. So some of it is like, there's a track in that album it's heavily microtonal, heavily, and it's representing some of those dastgahs in the same piece at the same time, measure by measure. It changes. It's pretty cool, actually. And so that's part of it, though.
Okay.
But I think that if you take out the word Iranian and put any other country versus Eurocentric Western classical music, it can come out as the name of the piece.
Okay.
I mean, I've played Iranian pieces that sound like Schoenberg, but written by an Iranian about an Iranian event.
Yeah, okay.
We can't say, oh, well, it's European music or this or that.
Yeah.
Once we start calling pieces by name, not like abstract number 2.
Yeah.
Or something like so.
It's also a good name, but
yeah, it's a pretty cool name. I think that it's the identity that comes through.
Okay.
I think that, but there are different ways of analysis that you can approach pieces. I do have an article about this.
Go ahead, tell me.
I'm plugging it. It's actually available.
Is this the one on Flute Talk?
No, this is in a Polish magazine called Glissando, and they did a whole big retrospective on Iranian music. That I wrote something about the performance practice of Iranian music.
Okay.
And if you read that article and replace the word Iranian with any other country, it still works.
Okay.
It's
like
all these basically references or ways to look at music to find how to play it. For example, if you're playing a Mozart and you read his letters and you know his dad and you know how Vienna was, it helps.
It really does.
It helps.
Yeah.
Or if you're playing Bach and you know that this is scale thing that I take it for granted. It's so new. That's why the guy is so obsessed about changing keys.
Yeah.
So it kind of teaches you a lot about how these things work. So basically, that's the article.
And that's one thing we can do. That's one of the great benefits of working with living composers. It's a huge passion of mine as well. I love playing new music just because you get to go directly to the composer and you get to working with them and find out exactly what they want, what they're thinking.
Yeah.
And also it takes away a lot of the preconceptions. Yeah. I love playing new music that I know no one else has played, because then it doesn't have that weight on me of like, am I going to interpret it that way? Am I going to do it this way?
Yeah.
It's going, no, it's my thing. And I feel like the weight just comes off entirely when you do this kind of music. Do you find a similar thing?
Yeah, definitely. It's a little bit harder and easier at the same time.
Okay.
Which brings me to this album.
Yes.
It's all folk songs.
Yeah,
I
know.
actually wrote it in the album notes that, we always say Mozart is hard to play.
Yeah.
because it's very simple, accessible, and every darn flute player under the sky has played it.
Yeah.
So what do you want to say?
Yeah.
Or what should you say? Anything? Just people have said it
exactly.
before.
Yeah.
Then this one has a lot of folk songs in it.
Yeah.
It's not all flute players knowing it or classical musicians. The whole nation knows that.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, how am I gonna interpret this? Like this folk song. Like,
can I ask you first, why did you choose to do folk songs?
Well, it's a set of 14 folk songs by an Iranian composer. His name is Iraj Sahbai. He's based in France. He was a Messiaen student, actually.
Ah, okay.
He's a living composer living in France. And I heard this. It was a piano collection.
Okay.
And then I heard it, and he's done such an amazing, clever job of messing with the measurements, messing with the meter, messing with the harmony.
Okay.
But the harmony doesn't come through in the piano version as much, because all the dissonances that I kind of get like goosebumps when I hear it, they fade right away. It's piano.
Okay.
So I was like, maybe I can write these for 2 flutes and really crunch the heck out of the dissonance. And so I started writing it for flute. There are moments that we were just holding into this minor second and just milking it. And so that was the idea, but then I started also doing extended techniques on them.
Yeah.
So I started realizing, oh, wow, this is like a third dimension, because like track 8 or track 10, or a lot of the album, when you listen to it, there's a third sound going on, which is the difference tone.
Yeah.
Of 2 flutes playing high notes fairly close, like let's say a third or fourth away, and there's a very defined low note going on at the same time.
Recorded extra, or you mean as a result of it?
No, as a result of that.
Yeah, I love that.
It's called different tones, I think.
So is that essentially where the sound waves clash with each other, and you're going to get a result of it?
Technically, the frequency of the top note, frequency of the bottom notes, minus the frequency of the bottom notes, whatever low notes that is, that you can hear.
That I love that kind of stuff.
It's so
that's where it becomes
jarring
physics
and
as well.
Cool at the same time, because you're like,
because it has a physical effect. Yeah,
it's a vibration. So there's a lot of that in the album. That's, if you're listening with a good headphones, it comes through, and that was became. And then Nassarin's piece was with me for the past 8 years. She's been written, and I was looking for. And then I realized, I have 3 pieces that I can put together, and it's an album already.
Yeah.
So I recorded it back in Texas last year, and came out a few weeks ago.
Yeah, so it is out now. Everyone should go check it out. We've got
it's on Spotify. It's called This Vast Sky.
It's a shame that these guys don't have the bookmarks, man, because the bookmarks are great.
Oh, thank you.
I love the bookmarks. Yeah, it's such a good idea, because I love getting something physical.
Yeah. I wanted something physical to give to people.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. But I also didn't want them to buy it.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't want to make money. Please go buy my CD and all that thing.
Yeah, you should. Yeah,
but
that's another thing. Yeah.
I already had recorded it. I had gotten some funding to do the editing from my university, and I just wanted to hand it out to people. Hey, there are some cool pieces.
It's cool. Because when you've got something to hold on to, that's the only thing I miss from CDs. I was talking about this before.
Physical.
That's the only thing. Because I get CDs now, I have no way of playing them. I just want to hold on to something. So these
also,
are great.
It was the cool thing about vinyl. It was a piece of art.
Yeah.
It's just the painting on it, or whatever the photo. You could put it on wall.
Yeah, exactly. So to have something like this is great. So obviously I'll put a link in the description, but everyone should go check it out, because it only came out like a week and a half ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago almost.
Yeah, it's really fresh.
It's very fresh. And
how's the reaction been so far?
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I've had the most satisfying thing is that everybody's telling me I need to publish the duets, and I'm looking for publishers.
Yeah. Okay.
And everybody's saying, "Oh, we want to play this."
Yeah.
And that was kind of the goal, because I don't want to sound all like grand that I want to promote like this or that. But there is something in all of us that you do want to promote. Like for me, Iranian music within the context of Western classical music is really rich. And I'm like, I do need to play pieces that are good objectively, and I know that's not a cool thing to say these days, but there are good pieces.
There 100% are good pieces.
And
100%.
The judges of those things are us musicians.
Yeah.
All right. And it's not only the pieces that people like, though. Right? There's a very tiny, it's like one of those
people like some shit. Yeah.
Charts. Yeah. It's one of those charts that's like 3 things that line up in the middle. I know that there's
people like Coldplay, for example.
Yeah.
And that's shit. So there's plenty of shit that people like. People have terrible taste sometimes. But anyway, yes. But
I mean, you can listen to Pink Floyd. Why Coldplay?
Yeah, exactly.
I was waiting for reactions.
There's the flute version of that, I suppose. I'll not slam on any modern composers, obviously, but that's the thing about modern music as well. I think is you don't know if it's shit or not yet. We haven't got it around long enough.
And I'm
It's
kind
fine.
of borrowing this from an American conductor that I worked with back, but he hadn't very good. He had to give this speech in this concert that we played, and it was mostly like just people that hadn't heard a lot of modern music before, and this is a concert of modern music. It's out there. It's like 70s Stockhausen craziness.
Class.
Like people are gonna show up in helicopters.
But
but he went out and said, give yourself the permission to not like this.
Wow.
And I was blown away.
I love
it's
that.
the best thing ever, and I constantly say it to people, like you should feel the right to hate this.
Yes.
Listen to it and say, I did not like this. But listen to it.
Yeah.
It's 7 minutes of your life that's not wasted.
No,
because you
never
formed an opinion that's not necessarily has to be
Very
positive
well
or negative.
Yeah.
But know why you don't like it.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's great. So with this, 100%. I have a taste.
Yeah.
That's mine. Everybody has a taste.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Theirs. And I think that there are good pieces and bad pieces.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah. After that's the thing about the previous album. That was like it's solo piece. It was kind of a rite of passage to prove myself that okay, you can't play these crazy things.
Yeah.
Now play things that you like and like.
Yeah.
And let people decide if they like
it too or not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that though. That's the way it should be. Also, just while we're on this, because I see it written here. Sankyo flutes are written on this now. We have to talk about Sankyo because I am doing things with Sankyo finally. I think I've told people officially that Sankyo are very brave people because not a lot of people are jumping on this podcast for obvious reason. But Sankyo are great people, so that's why we're together. Because Sankyo, we know each other as well, but Sankyo would gently nudge me in the direction of doing a podcast with you as well, which I love because I know that the Sankyo artists are great. They're like Mehrdad too. You should definitely get him. I'm like, yes, of course I fucking will. So, you play on a Sankyo. Let's talk about Sankyo.
Yeah, I've always played on Sankyo after my first, kind of intermediate flute. Well, my story with Sankyo is kind of weird and funny because...
you hinted at this story before and I haven't heard it yet, so I'm dying to hear this.
So, I played on a Yamaha, just kind of generic mid-Yamaha. And so, it was time to buy
bleep Yamaha. Every time you say Yamaha, I'll bleep it out.
Oh, yeah.
So we get Sankyo money.
So my teacher at the time and everybody around me in Iran had a Sankyo.
Okay.
And
interesting.
So, but in Iran we couldn't try flutes. I bought my first Sankyo without trying it.
And what's the reason for that? Just no shops or not getting things imported?
No shops. The country is like heavily sanctioned financially, so it's not worth it. And also the exchange rate is so like I had to get a loan for a car, sell it in the black market.
Yeah, okay.
It's ridiculous. Sell this car loan to a person who wanted a car and get a loan. It's like I went to depth and to being able to play to buy the Sankyo. And my teacher had it. And some of our other prominent students had it. So I could try it. I tried a 201 and a 301. And I ended up saying, okay, how much money do I have? Okay, I can buy a 401 at the time. Yeah. And my teacher came to America and at NFA and bought it at NFA for me. I think it was NFA or some online place. And that was it. That's the story. So I kind of picked it without trying it, and then it came on. You're nervous. I'm going to like this head joint or whatever. Loved it. Yeah, loved it. And then my gold Sankyo that I bought 2 years ago, which the album is played on it. This instrument, I really love it.
They're incredible.
And I always tell, it's hard to pitch Sankyos, and the reasoning for that is that it's not an alluring. It's not a love in first sight instrument because, and this is like an anti-compliment. That's a super compliment.
Go for it.
It doesn't have a sound. It's your sound.
Yeah. Okay.
It doesn't come prepared with this is the so and so sound of warm and rich. And
we'll not say any other flute brands about that, but we know.
Yeah, and Sankyo comes and you have to get in the workshop and build your sound.
I totally agree with
on that flute.
Yes.
So there's. I mean, I had played on Sankyo, so there wasn't that much of an adjustment period with my gold one because it feels the same exactly too.
Yeah.
But with Sankyo, I feel like you need to go and kind of sit. It's very kind of you need to sit with your flute and say, okay, what do I want to sound like, and it will give it to you. It will give it to you. Plus, it's really durable. Which for my case back in Iran was really important because we also didn't have access to good maintenance.
Yeah, okay.
I played that flute 10 years and really played on it as far as hitting the keys.
Yeah.
And nothing happened to it.
Yeah.
10 years, no pads issues,
they are
nothing.
A great thought, yeah.
And then, so durability, and I like the fact that the sound is really like a chameleon. You can't do anything with it. I do play a lot of music like that I sometimes need to have a very fluffy sound and a very focused sound. And I feel like the spectrum is much wider.
I totally get this. Like, this is one of the things when I've been trying to tell people about Sankyo, or when you meet other Sankyo artists, like, I sort of fell into Sankyo a little bit recently just because I happened to play a Sankyo. I'd never chosen to play one. I found one. I loved it. That was it. And when you talk to other Sankyo artists, it's always the same thing. They're always like, yeah, it's not really, I can't really promote it and say this is what's great about Sankyo. I just love it.
You learned how to play. It gives you.
Yeah. So they're not like
that's the slogan.
Yeah.
Be you. Become you. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
It should be though.
I'd like to say, we should pitch this when we go back downstairs. Yeah, we've got some great ideas for Sankyo. Yeah. But there is something about them, and I think the biggest, like the thing that convinced me so much about Sankyo is when you see other Sankyo artists talk about their flutes, they really do love it, and it feels like they all had the same thing both of us have had, where you happen to play a Sankyo and then you just loved it. And you stuck with them because you like it. Not because they've approached you, not because it's like the big name or anything. It's actually the opposite. I feel like Sankyo aren't the big name. They're not the big obvious one that we all go to. But we just fall in them, we fall in love with them, and all the artists that play with them love them.
Yeah, the second time I bought the gold one that I bought, I tried every flute.
I was going to,
I tried at least like 30 or 40. Some of them were instant no's. But the funny thing is that anytime that I brought back a flute to test it versus like Sankyo's, the first day, Sankyo was not winning.
Yeah.
And then
this is a common one. It's
2
a common story.
or 3 more days later, the initial shock of a new head joint had gone down.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, but the Sankyos is still sounding really good, and the other flutes would, at least for me with my style of playing, the other flutes were like, okay, that's just the sound.
Yeah.
I can't do anything else with it. Oh, and it would kind of come up and it was like, nope. It's like by far sitting on top afterwards. After like
totally
2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the if you're going to just try it in the shop and buy it, probability of you buying a Sankyo is really low.
I agree with that, yeah. You need to get to know the instruments.
Because it's an instrument that doesn't have like instant gratification.
No, not at all.
It's a really high return of delayed gratification though.
I hope I'm right in saying this. If I'm wrong, I'll remove it. But I believe all Sankyo flutes are fully handmade. I believe that. So they all do have like proper personality. Like I play one of the 5K ones, which I picked up because they don't make them anymore because they have the thing with the alloy. But they are popping up a lot about, over Europe and London and America. And I've tried other 5K ones. They are totally different to the one I play on. Totally different instruments. So you can see how individual Sankyos are. But I genuinely believe you go and find one and spend a lot of time that you will love them.
Yeah.
But
they don't also make the FT head joints anymore, which I love. Those are so good.
I'm sort of wondering what they're getting up to in that laboratory back there. If they're cooking up something special with a new model or something, because I'm waiting for it. Yeah, I hope there's something going on there. Maybe we'll go and find out. But I love them. I have to give them a big shout out because I'm so happy to be involved with them. And the people are really cool. So, like, I'm plugging Sankyo now. They're not paying me a penny, I will say that. I'm not being endorsed by Sankyo. I just love them. And I'm so happy to be with them. So that's the bit about Sankyo done, because I'm very happy to talk about that. Is there anything specific you'd like to talk about with teaching?
No, it's I mean, I feel like America changed a lot of the style of teaching that I did before. And the past years... As a teacher. And I kind of had a laboratory in Texas because I taught around 50 lessons a week.
50? 50?
50. For a good year, I taught that many. Then I just like mental health kicked in.
Yeah.
And you bring it down to 35. But I always had a combination of, let's say, 25.
Okay.
Half-an-hour lessons. and group classes and beginner group classes for schools.
Yeah.
So that really changed everything that I did before as far as the language goes. That was the big change for me.
What do you mean in the language?
Well, on the same day, I had to teach vibrato some days to a 6th grader, to a senior, to a serious senior Eber playing senior that's going to college, and to maybe like a college student.
Yeah.
And I was like, how can I teach this the same way?
Explain the same concept.
Different with the same wording.
Okay.
And I do watch a lot of flute master classes, and you find a lot of vagueness with the teaching.
Yeah.
And usually it works in that context because you're not trapped in an 8x8 square with a student that doesn't want to be there.
That's another
really
point,
important. And
well, this is real teaching as well. Masterclass is different. It's not real teaching.
Yeah. And usually the person in a masterclass is there to be there. And 99% of the time, they're really sharp, fast to change things. The students that are, even if you tell them play better, they're gonna play better.
Yeah, because I think this is the thing about masterclasses, which sort of masterclasses annoy me a little bit because I feel like they're performative. Because you don't really, most flute players or musicians don't go to a masterclass to learn stuff. They go to show off in front of the visiting artist. Yeah. So they come fully prepared with pieces they've played in concerts. You go, well, what's the point? You're not going to learn anything really fun. You're going to learn a little bit about interpretation, but you're not going to learn anything you couldn't have learned from a recording of the player.
I honestly started doing the exact opposites, and I got very good rewards from people.
As a masterclass teacher?
As a masterclass. I started doing it completely different in the sense of I wasn't talking big ideas.
Yeah.
I started thinking that can I fix one or two things about this very specific person in front of me? And because let's say I'm in an interview, I'm teaching a masterclass. They don't want to hear me say, well, Mozart in 1742 had this thing. They don't care. They want to see how you interact with the person.
Yeah.
In an or even if you are teaching as a guest somewhere, people want to see how you problem solve.
Yeah, well, that's what you're there for.
Quick on your feet, problem solving. And then I started talking very simple. With simple, as if I'm talking to a 7th grader or 6th grader, and it started having very immediate effects. Because let's say when you're talking about vibrato, if you don't talk too much about diaphragm and just kind of talk about the ab muscles and the result of the vibrato that you want to get, if you go around it instead of teaching them, telling them what the result you want and letting them figure it out, it's very simple, but it works. Magic.
I can understand.
It really works magic. It was like, can you do this number of pulsations? Can you do this number of pulsations in this dynamic?
Yeah.
All right. And then tell me what's happening. So it's much simpler than philosophizing beforehand.
Yeah.
And then that was really helpful. So people see that, oh, you want to truly help as much as you can to change one or two things about this person in the 5 minutes that you have with them.
Which to me that strikes me as true pedagogy as well, because that is your job. Your job is to make the players better. And again, in masterclasses, it's so tempting to say something like, "Oh, do the end of this phrase a little bit quieter. Give me more sad," or express a little bit more. But these are These are fluid concepts. Yeah, and this is a load of shit. Like,
I mean, as a teacher,
it might work, but
because when you tell a student played with purple color, that student is a good student. They are going to play it with a purple color, whatever the heck that means. Yeah, and it does its own. I mean, I understand the concept, but when it comes to the trenches,
that's what I meant.
Closed doors that you are teaching 20, 30, real 40 students. That's again the modifier of they are reluctant to be there, but they are there and the parent is paying.
See, these are the real challenges of teaching.
Yes. So how can you make them interested? And they are I mean, I've done a lot of middle school, high school teaching that the kid is like that's in their own they are in the I don't care phase.
Yeah. Which I think everyone goes through. I don't care
is cool at that age.
It is, yeah.
And then you have to teach them why they should care. So it kind of becomes this kind of mind game of how can I honestly make this student care
Yeah.
And why does this matter?
And that's incredibly personal as well.
Yeah, it gets personal. I mean, I have to tell a lot of my students that, hey, you might not do anything with Marcel Moyes in 10 years.
Yeah.
And he doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Don't put this on the podcast. But learning how to learn this thing will help you in the future become a good person.
Yeah.
Whatever you are going to do in the future, learn how to learn.
Yeah.
And so if you teach like that, it works.
Okay, let's get to some fun questions then.
Let's do it.
Right. Again, I warn all my guests, you don't have to answer super quickly. You do get time to think about this, okay?
All right.
But let's go. First question. Do you have a favorite flute concerto? Is there a good Iranian one that you like?
I'm going to play one that I honestly like it. It's a 10-minute piece by Hossein Nasahi that's just was found 2 years ago. And it's a good piece. It's like Schoenberg goes to vacation in Tehran during 1960s.
I'm sold.
It's serialist, but it's not, and it's kind of weird and quirky and very short, 10 minutes. But as far as the big ones, it's really hard. And you know what? I've listened to all episodes. Everybody has talked about Reinecke and Iber. And there's this Canadian composer, Christos Hatzis. That Patrick Gallois has recorded an album.
Ooh, okay.
It's called Departures.
Okay.
And it's kind of a Bach ripoff. His take on some Bach concertos that go through kind of time disfigurement. Christos Hatzis.
That sounds fascinating.
Super cool. You should go listen. And it's Patrick Gallois.
Yeah.
So it's going to sound the best.
Love Patrick Gallois, man. He's not everyone's cup of tea, to be fair.
I went through like being a fanboy of Patrick
Did you have a Gallois phase?
Gallois phase.
I feel like I don't know why, but I feel like a lot of male flute players, especially, we have a Gallois phase. A lot of lads I talked to, I had a Gallois phase where I was obsessed with him.
Did you play every note inflated and out of tune?
Yeah.
Thinking that it sounds like that?
Yes. And some of the interpretations I would have done of like Baroque stuff, I was like, yeah, you've been listening to a bit of Gallois, haven't you?
The Mozart D trill.
Oh.
But
I'm so glad you had a Gallois phase as well.
Though. That's like, imagine the guts.
That's what I respect more. That. Yeah, when I get older, I'm like, fair play,
he's the right one, because I know for a fact that he's taking that from Leopold Mozart.
Yes,
you're supposed
I heard
to
this
play
recently.
That note like that, and nobody does it.
And nobody listens to him. Yeah,
stumbles upon this trill. It's just so good.
He keeps at it.
Yeah,
nice one. Okay, do you remember the first flute album that you bought?
I didn't pay for it. My brother got it for me. Fine, but this Man with the Golden Flute. And it was my only album forever.
Classic.
And you know, it was on tape.
Yeah, cassette.
It's funny, if you're growing up in Iran as a millennial, you are kind of a boomer in America. It's just a generation difference. And I grew up with having tapes, and it was a tape of Man with, and I didn't know the name of it. And now I say, Man with the Golden Flute from 1970, whatever. But at the time, it just said Flute Recital, James Galway.
Okay.
And in Farsi, so I just James. How do you? Because if you like transliterate it in Farsi, you can read it different ways, and the first track is Horace Staccato.
Yes.
And he goes there, and those low notes, I was like, there's no way that's flute. That's not flute.
Yeah, that's trumpet.
So low sounding. That's not flute.
It's funny. I had the exact same reaction as a kid to that exact same part.
Yeah. Like, that's not flute. That's not. Yeah. It must be a bigger flute or something like that. And then Fantasy Pastoral by Doppler was there too, and you feel like
something. I'm trying to remember.
And I have a funny story with Godard Waltz that he plays.
Oh, I hate that piece.
For a couple of years, when I started flute with a clarinet player as my teacher.
Okay.
And he was this. He's passed, unfortunately now. He was the 75-year-old man that started teaching me the flute, very old school, and he was like, the Godard Waltz is the hardest piece of music written for flute. And one day you'll be able to play it. And I played it a few years ago, and that's actually how sad story. I found out he's passed. And I wanted to make a little home recording and send it to him. That hey, look, I'm able to play it now.
Finally, yeah.
Yeah, but it's so funny that for years I thought that this is the pinnacle of flute playing.
To be fair, it's hard. A nightmare.
It's hard.
It is so much harder than it looks.
Plays it
sounds so easy.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's too fast.
Again,
well, it's not too fast, but
flute.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, I hate I hate that so much. And I used to listen to it so much because Jimmy does it so perfectly. And you're like, oh yeah, it's not that hard. Then you start playing, you're like, that's impossible. You can't do it like that. Great album. Do you remember the first album in general that you bought? Do you have a or was it the same album then maybe?
It was, it's going to be super nerdy. It was a Flute's VHS of Galway.
Which one?
On the waterfront.
Yes,
recital.
The one in Belfast. Yes, I love that one.
Recital, and it was on a VHS, and they also had is it BBC interview with him?
Yes, there is.
That he's sitting out on that balcony, and he plays the partita, going double tongue.
Yeah.
And I watched that, and I didn't know English at the time.
Yeah.
Which later, thanks to Fraser, I learned English. I
forgot to talk about this. Yeah.
Like that. But I watched that. I love just seeing him talk and the way that he bursts into laughing. It was like, this guy is so quirky and amazing.
He does have a great.
That's a good recital.
That is an unbelievable recital. Is it Philip Mawley plays with in that one?
Philip Mawley is playing.
Yeah.
He does Prokofiev. He does La Flute de Pan.
Yeah.
He does
Poulenc as well.
Dance of the Bumblebee for the encore, of course.
Yeah, that was because he used to come to Belfast all the time, and he was one of the few solo artists that would sell out the Waterfront. It's a beautiful venue, the Waterfront in Belfast, and that video was great because it's like 2000, I think.
It's 2000s.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's brilliant. Oh,
and the interview is that's I remember that.
I had the same VHS.
Check out this music store in Tehran that they didn't have many things. And they never had flute stuff.
Yeah.
And I would go there after a rehearsal with this contemporary ensemble I played because it was closed. And I'm like 14 or 15. I was like, do you have flute things?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, we have a flute thing. And he pulled out the VHS and it's like
Jimmy Gholami in Belfast.
With his like necklace, the cross necklace. And it's just like looking at I was like, oh my gosh, I could not wait to get home.
That is great.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I added a new question recently. Do you have a go-to karaoke song? If you had to sing karaoke, what would you sing?
Oh gosh, I need to now to pull out my Persian pop playlist. Oh. Well, I do have a bunch of that, but with the American ones, I really like Paul Simon.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I really like Paul Simon.
I can see that. Yeah.
So Paul Simon would be, if I can do the lyrics, I also like Michael Jackson. But
hard to sing them.
Yeah.
That's a brave one.
Paul Simon has this, it's going to sound very American. We've talked about Texas so much. And this song called American Tune.
I don't know what. Okay.
You should go listen to it. It's I think
that's a good answer.
Yeah, it's especially since you're in America now.
Yeah.
In the USA, but it's called the American Song, and or the American Tune. American Tune because it's in the lyrics. I love that one.
Okay. That's a good one. I like that. Wasn't expecting that, but I like that. Yeah, that's a good one.
It's really good.
Okay, if you could switch instruments but still be as good as you are, everyone says cello, man. I've had like 1,000 cellos. I understand why it's beautiful.
I mean, you sit next to oboe players and clarinet players and bassoon players. You're like, oh, that's so hard.
Yeah, the oboe I have no desire to play.
Yeah, but cello, it's mostly because of the rep.
Yeah, I get that. The rep and the concertos and the sonatas are.
And cello. I really am. I'm old school. I really like Beethoven.
Yeah, I love Beethoven too.
Beethoven piano trios, and as a pianist, Beethoven piano sonatas. I feel like they are the bottom of the conciseness of humanity.
Totally agree.
Super.
Beethoven's my favorite.
Universal. Yeah.
Cello. Okay. Okay. If you could have a career outside of music, what would you do? So you had to do something.
Graphic designer.
Ah, interesting. Have you done any graphic design?
No, but back in Iran, we had to prepare this tests. It's like SAT in America, but it's much bigger. We call it the national concourse, and I had to study really hard for that. And it has all the subjects that you have to study. It's a 4-hour test that everybody takes. It's really actually high stakes in Iran. It's really cruel.
Yeah.
That you have to take this 4-hour-long test on all subjects that you must know. So I studied graphic history and movie history and all the arts history for that test, and I was always fascinated with how it trains your eyes to look at things in like a performance.
Yeah.
Like you see things and like, oh, that's wrong. That's not good. Okay, those are
okay.
Like why does that?
Like,
that kind of a thing. That it makes you
analytical then,
make very good photos with phone, and people like you because of that.
That's great. Great way to make friends then.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like, oh, you put me in the golden mean.
Yeah. Nice.
But graphic designer, it's just very alluring. It's really.
I can see that. Yeah.
It's kind of a clean artistic job.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Last 2 questions. If you could have a drink with any musician alive or dead, who would you have a drink with?
Oh God.
It's a hard one, that.
Oh.
And your answer will probably change, but.
Yeah. I am just gonna be very vanilla and say, you know what? No, I stand behind it. I would say Bach.
Yeah.
I would say Bach. Multiple reasons. I think that we've played so much of it that everybody's like, oh, of course. But we don't add. I think that going back to the education, we are not telling people why he's important enough. I always make a joke that imagine Art of Fugue, but they didn't have like toilets at the time. It was not invented. They didn't know about blood circulation.
Yeah.
Like just put it in historical context and realize how bizarrely out of timeless he was.
Yeah.
It's hard to not get behind those conspiracy theories that he was an alien.
There were conspiracy theories about Bach being an alien?
That can be the episode name. Bach was an alien.
Is there actual conspiracy theories about that? I'm a believer. I'm convinced already. Yeah, I believe already.
Yeah, don't look up anything about the Earth and flatness. But
well, I'm in America.
That's a great conspiracy theory to get behind. Cause
is that the best one?
If you actually, if you think about it, I mean, the flute sonatas are great too, but it's so timeless. And it's so universal. That's another thing, because I do a lot of this is an Iranian piece or this. I truly believe that there is a universal language of music.
Yeah, I agree.
And now we are exploring into identities a lot these days, which is great. But also there is this current of universality and that Bach is a great. If you say that Bach, it's a media, I will defend it as a non-European person because he's my heritage as a person, as a human.
I agree with that.
It's like a universal heritage of these amazing awfully out of their time, bizarre.
Yeah. The only 2 people I ever got that with are Bach, and I have the same feeling about Shakespeare.
Yeah,
I always feel like Shakespeare's incredibly universal.
The same reasons.
Yeah.
Who was
pure humanity.
Yeah, exactly.
And my translate just works.
I have an album idea about Bach and some Persian stuff that I'm going to do in the coming years. But exclusive. But that's exactly going to be the idea. That's the gravity of his music. I only have noticed that, let's say in Persian poetry.
Okay.
It stands shoulder by shoulder. That's I can't find an Iranian music example that stands shoulder by shoulder, but I can find it in literature. It's like Shakespeare. Okay. Right? So you kind of go across the art and it's okay, what is timeless? What is universal? What is for humans? Yeah. And you're like, oh gosh.
It's hard to find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I recently read in a book that those time capsules that they sent to I read in a book that they wanted to pick one piece of music to send to the space.
I know the story somewhere, but I can't remember.
I think they went with Beethoven 9.
I think that, but is that not because it fitted on one side of an album or something ridiculous like that?
Yes, it's 70-something minutes. Yeah. Oh, that's why the CDs are 72 minutes.
That's what it is.
Herbert von Karajan, history with Gareth and MG.
Yeah, nice.
But they talked about, should we do Bach Mass in B minor?
Yeah, that was right.
And somebody made a joke that no, that would be showing off.
Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah.
Fantastic. I love that story.
I'm a huge Bach fan as well. So you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
Okay, and the very last question.
That's the one. That's the one.
Perfect. Yeah, that's not a cop-out. That's a great answer.
I think he would be too busy looking at his phone, checking out with the kids.
Yeah.
To go get the kids. But
wow, that's a good joke. Yeah. It took me a second to realize that was a good one. Right, last question then. Do you have a favorite drink, alcoholic or non-alcoholic?
We recently moved to Pacific Northwest.
What's going on up there?
Kombucha.
Oh, a lot of people are getting into the kombucha thing now, yeah.
Yeah, if I want to say alcoholic, I don't drink a lot, but old-fashioned is just
Classic.
Very classic, and the maraschino.
It's a Hemingway drink, isn't it? Yeah.
But I've been getting into kombuchas.
Kombucha, yeah. Actually, very hipster.
My wife loves it, and I've been kind of stealing a little bit of her kombuchas, and it's pretty good.
It's very.
I'm not telling her this, and hopefully she doesn't make it this far into the podcast. I mean, you put this in there. But kombuchas,
they are delicious. They feel a bit.
It's kind of pseudo healthy.
They are. That's it. I feel like kombucha
makes you feel like a better person.
There's something about kombucha that feels very soccer mom, but I do like them. I do really like them. Yeah. But it's very soccer mom. Yeah. Great. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well then, we are done. So I want to say thank you very much for coming on, and obviously, your links to the albums will be in the bio. People will find you. You're all on social media as well. They'll find you no problem. Just search your name. You'll get the whole. Well, you have a website. There's all. It's wonderful. You'll find it all. So thank you everybody for listening, and I will see you all next week. And thank you, Mehrdad.
Thank you so much.
Cheerio, guys.